The chair stayed, but I didn't. I whisper that line sometimes, like it's a confession only the walls would understand. There's a chair in the corner of my old apartment, just a simple thing. Worn fabric, crooked leg, coffee stain no one could scrub out. I used to sit there every evening like clockwork, same hour, same silence. But over time, I stopped showing up fully. My body made it there. My voice didn't. I remember one night, the light from the window stretched across it, soft and golden, like it was reaching for something, but I had already started pulling away, quietly, invisibly, emotionally. I think I began leaving before anyone noticed I was trying to. You can leave a room without making a sound, but it echoes anyway, unknown. And yet, the chair, it kept holding the shape of someone, still trying. It didn't know how to let go. Maybe I didn't either. Some exits don't slam doors, they just stop asking to be seen. And maybe the story I'm about to tell is really yours too. Some mornings I'd make the coffee without tasting it, scroll without reading, smile without meaning, arrive without being there. Those were the days I sat in that chair, but never really arrived. Monday, the ritual that forgot me. The mug always sat on the left side of the armrest. That was the rule. Mornings were for order. I needed it, like a railing on a slippery staircase. But there was a week I kept forgetting sugar, then creamer, then, eventually, the coffee. I'd still sit in the chair, empty mug in hand, just holding it, like maybe warmth could be imagined. It's just a phase, I told myself. I'm just tired. But that wasn't what really hurt. What really hurt was realizing I didn't even miss myself. Sometimes we vanish from our own days before anyone else can. Ocean Vuong. The cup remembered me more than I remembered the taste. Wednesday, the hoodie I never took off. It was navy blue, faded, oversized enough to swallow me whole. I wore it because it felt like armor, or maybe fog. My roommate asked, "You cold?" I said, "No." She didn't ask again. It was the fourth day I wore it. Sometimes I wonder if it ever started to smell like absence. The fabric began to hold the shape of my slouch, like it knew I was disappearing and tried to remember what I used to be. But that wasn't what really hurt. What hurt was how nobody noticed the way I stopped choosing color. People say, wear what makes you feel like you, but what if you feels like nothing? Anonymous TikTok. The hoodie was just heavy enough to keep me grounded, but not enough to bring me back. Friday, the laugh I didn't recognize, a group chat, a meme, a reply. Someone laughed, loud and sudden. It took a second before I realized it was me. Reflex, not joy. It echoed too sharply in the quiet. It startled me, like a stranger breaking into my face. Then it was gone. Silence again. Even the chair shifted like it didn't know how to hold that sound. But that wasn't what really hurt. What hurt was realizing even joy felt borrowed. My laugh comes back before I do. That's how I know I'm still far away. Even echoes can feel foreign when you forget what you sound like. Sunday, the calendar that kept going. There's a calendar above my desk. Little boxes, empty lines, crossed out days. I once loved planning, highlighting the hours I could claim for myself. But the highlighters dried out. The plans blurred. And the boxes, they filled themselves with dust, not with life. The chair stayed in its same spot. Steady, unmoved, reliable. I hated it for that. It didn't understand the exhaustion of pretending everything still mattered. But that wasn't what really hurt. What really hurt was how my life kept happening even when I didn't. Time doesn't need you to feel okay. It moves anyway. Joan Didion, even the dust was more consistent than I was. The silence after. The hardest part wasn't the feeling, it was the silence after it. Not the crying, but the stillness that followed. The kind that makes the refrigerator hum sound like a scream. The kind where the chair creaks and you wonder if it's breaking or just lonely. I used to sit there hoping someone would knock. They never did. Not because they didn't care, but because I never said I left. The loudest silence is the one you keep rehearsing alone. Some disappearances don't need doors, just time. But what stayed with me the most wasn't what happened, it was how it felt afterward. The chair became a monument, not to me, but to the version of me that used to arrive. It held its silence like a prayer. Every evening, the room filled with golden light. It used to feel warm, soft, like something was about to begin. But lately, the light touched everything except me. There was dust gathering in the seams, tiny specks collecting where my elbow once rested. It didn't bother to hide. Neither did I. We had an understanding. I would sit and say nothing. It would stay and ask nothing. Once I heard the wind knock softly on the window. Even it seemed unsure if it should come in. That's when I realized the room had stopped expecting me. Like a friend who used to text, "Let me know you got home safe," but stopped when I stopped replying. Some spaces move on before you do. Tyler, not Gregson. Even the shadows stopped stretching toward me. The chair didn't complain. It just held its shape, like it was hoping I might come back and fit again, but I didn't. And it was in that stillness, something new began to grow. I started folding laundry again, not because I cared, but because my hands needed something to do. T-shirts, hoodies, socks, creased and tucked, like I was trying to fold myself into something smaller. The chair sat nearby, watching me. It didn't move. It never did. I avoided looking at it for days. But that morning, I did. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. It began quietly, like the dryer in the next room. A rhythm I had forgotten could be comforting. There's something strangely intimate about folding the clothes of your own survival. The shirt you wore through 3 missed calls. The hoodie that held your silence like a second skin. The jeans you put on just to prove you still could. Every fold whispered, "You're still here." Not loudly, not proudly, but enough. You don't measure healing in milestones. You measure it in mornings that don't begin with dread. Brene Brown. That hit me while I was folding my favorite t-shirt, the one with a faded quote from a band I don't even listen to anymore. It still smelled like detergent and dust, like memory and moving on. Blended. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Deep, then deeper. And the silence didn't feel like it was punishing me anymore. It felt still. Like a pause, not an end. That morning I sat in the chair again. Not because I was okay, but because I wanted to see if it remembered how to hold me. It did. Not perfectly, but closely enough. The chair didn't forget, and maybe neither did I. I closed my eyes, heard the distant chirp of a car alarm, the dog barking 2 floors down. Life was still happening without waiting for me. But I didn't feel behind. I felt beside it. Finally. Healing is when the chair doesn't scare you anymore. It just becomes a place to sit. And it didn't erase the pain, but it gave it a to rest. There's a mirror across from the chair. Not a full-length one, just a small oval mounted crookedly on the wall. I used to avoid it, like it was asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. But that day, I looked. Really looked. And for a moment, I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked different, but because I didn't look away. My eyes had lost their edge. Not dead, just quiet, like headlights on low beam, flickering, but still on. I think a part of me was just tired of pretending I wasn't tired. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't beg for sleep. It begs for permission to stop, to not have to shine so hard just to prove you're still in the room. And maybe I had been dimming all this time, not because I was weak, but because the world had been too loud, too demanding, too much. The chair didn't ask me to be bright. It just offered space. No instructions, no performance, just space. To be seen without spotlight is a kind of freedom too. Ruby Kaur. I sat there, hands on my knees, breath slow, no soundtrack, no epiphany, just presence. And I thought about all the versions of me that tried so hard, the achiever, the entertainer, the one who always said, "I'm fine." How I buried her under to-do lists and affirmations. How I forgot that dimming isn't the same as dying. That mirror didn't lie, but it didn't accuse me either. It just reflected whatever I was willing to meet. So I met myself, not fully, not fearlessly, but honestly. For the first time in a while, and I wonder if you've ever felt the same way too. I walked into the room the same way I always did. Same door, same creaky floorboard 2 steps in, same late afternoon light spilling over the edge of the rug, but it felt different. The chair was still there, crooked, still holding the indentation of me, still creaking in protest when I leaned back, but I wasn't afraid of what it held anymore. I didn't need it to carry my weight. I just wanted it to hold space beside me. That was the difference. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi. I used to sit here to disappear. Now I sit here to return, not to who I was, but to the quiet part of me I left behind. I ran my fingers along the armrest, a groove from too many restless nights, a chipped corner from when I spilled a glass of ginger tea, small remnants of staying, of surviving. The chair hadn't changed, but I had. My breath, once tight and shallow, now moved slower. Not forced, just allowed. Maybe peace doesn't come when things go away. Maybe it comes when you stop running from them. I closed my eyes. The wind tapped the window again, like an old friend saying, I'm still here. And I believed it. The hoodie still hung on the doorknob, still navy, still oversized, but it didn't feel like armor anymore. Just fabric, just memory. Some things only stop haunting you when you let them be ordinary again. The same chair, the same light, but now a softer breath, a quieter self, and I didn't need a new beginning. Maybe I just needed to stay and see myself differently. The chair is still there. I pass by it now, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with music playing low in my headphones. I don't sit in it much anymore, not because I avoid it, but because I no longer need it to hold me. The room no longer feels like a waiting room for grief. It just feels like a room. The window is always open now, and the breeze no longer knocks. It just drifts in, casual, unapologetic, like light. Some stories don't end, they just stop being said out loud, and maybe I'm still sitting there, not waiting, just breathing softly.